If you love to customize your truck like I do, this may be an accessory you want to take a look at. I was sent this over to take a look. Let's open it up and test it out. So in this kit, there is the instruction manual, which you'll definitely want to have on hand because of wiring all this up. And then you have this little switch assembly right here. That's going to be where everything gets plugged into. And then here you have all the cables for connecting to that switch assembly. And then there's hardware right there for it. Here's your fuse tap, which is very important. And then here's your little fuse connector breaker that goes in between your switch assembly and the battery. And then right here is the actual control panel that mounts inside of your truck. Nice little, feels very solid little unit right here. That'll be really cool to have. And then right here is the cable that will end up connecting to your little switch right here into this box. And then lastly is the mounting hardware for your little switch panel. So before installing this, I wanted to give you a layout and simple explanation of how this actually works. Starting with the control panel inside your truck. This will be mounted inside, and you'll have your customized stickers, and it's just a click button. So that wire is going to run through somewhere in your firewall, depending on where you choose to do it, and then that will run all the way over to having this box mounted close to your battery. And that cable goes in, connects to here, and the other cable that's connected right beside it is this red cable. This red cable will be connected to your fuse tap, which is going to be connected to either an accessory, or they also mention connect this to the headlight or an accessory. So basically, you're going to want this connected to a fuse that will turn power on when you turn your truck key on. So that is a very important part of this whole assembly, is where you put this fuse, because that fuse turning on and getting power is what is communicating to this whole thing to turn on. So then after that piece, you have all your connectors right here. That's the beauty of a setup like this, is having all your connectors right here for different lights or other accessories you want a switch on the inside for. So all your wiring can come straight to this spot right here, and you're going to be able to switch it. And you're also able to have this cover on here when it's finished being installed, because of the holes that are in the bottom here. All those wires can come up underneath and then completely be enclosed and protected nicely. So that's a really cool part about this, is having all these connectors right in one spot. So then also from this, this is going to be mounted close to your battery, and the cables from here are going to go to your battery. And the red one is going to connect to this little fuse disconnect. It has a 60 amp disconnect on it. So in trying to figure out where I was actually going to mount this thing, I lifted this up and realized that they also had all of these mounting panels right here, and that's probably going to really help out in trying to figure out where I'm going to mount this in my engine bay. Alright, so I got this all installed on the truck, and I'm going to give you a full rundown starting at the battery on how I have this hooked up to my truck. So here at the battery, this is on a 2017 F-150 with the 2.7 engine in it, and this is the Super Crew. So I don't know if that makes a difference on layout on some of these things, but I have here on the battery, using the factory connection right there, I have it connected onto those two things. And this is actually zip tied onto this battery with these handles right here. Wasn't sure exactly where I wanted this yet, but I thought this would maybe be a good spot, and hopefully it's going to close with the hood, because I actually haven't tested that out yet. But that should stay there, or just somewhere around here, and then straight from there we go right to the panel here that all the connections are made at. Now, different trucks are going to have different options for mounting. I really wanted to mount this somewhere else, but it's just kind of difficult based on the size of this. So I went ahead and just put some little screws that were included, the self-tapping screws, into this plastic cover. It's not, hitting anything. This plastic cover sits up above the engine, but I don't know if the heat from the engine will have any effect on this, but this was just about the best option for me to mount, and it's going to be on there pretty nice and solid. So From there, we have basically all our connections are made right here. This one is the connection that is going to be fuse tapped, and I have that not zip tied yet, but it's coming over to my fuse box up here. You have to figure out which accessory fuse you can go to on your fuse box. Sometimes you might even have to go to the one inside the truck. So that's what that red wire is for, and that gives you signal to the control inside the truck for making the switches work. And then this right here is the wire that goes inside the truck, and I'll show you in a minute how that is going all the way, and that goes to the control panel inside the truck. And lastly, I have a sample connection right here of some lights that I have sitting here so we can see inside when the switch works. And also here is what the cover is going to look like. That will sit on top, and they have nice extra fuses included with a little fuse puller right there. So that's going to be covered up, and I think work pretty well on this cover. So let's follow this wire all the way to where it is in the truck. As you can see, I have it zip tied up to here, going around here, and then it goes down into that little gasket into the firewall right there. That is a little connector for some electric wiring that goes through, and I just kind of pulled that rubber piece to the side enough to get this piece to be able to feed through there. And so when we go on the inside, you can see underneath here where that is coming in right here, and then that simply is just running up behind these plastics. It's real easy to feel your hand up in there, and I have that cable connected to the one that comes out of this little switch box, and it is just connected into that, and it's a really easy way to hide everything just going right behind there. So that is how that comes to this little switch panel. And then now let's go ahead and test it out. I have the keys turned on. Let's turn the truck on. So I've noticed there's different settings you can do on this. Right now when I turn the truck on, it doesn't actually light it up. I can hit the on button here. There, it actually turned it on. So there's some different settings, and I got to figure out completely how the buttons work. But you can see here that I have the one connected up already, and the light is right there. So when I hit that button, there it is, working how it's supposed to. And that's just going to be really cool to have this little switch box. I'm going to be putting one down here, so I just noticed on the bottom corner for like a train horn. That's going to be really cool to have on here, and it's just going to be really neat to have. You can hold this on and off button down, and it changes the colors on here to different ones. And then it also has a sensor on here for the lights, so when it's dark outside, it's not going to be bright lights blinding you. So just some really cool things that you can do with one of these. And let's go ahead and turn the truck off, and you can see it turns those lights off. And that was the point of that red wire and what it's supposed to do up there. That you connect into the fuse tap. That control of the light turning on and off with the truck, that's what that wire is all about right there. So that's a very important connection to have made. So that's pretty much it for the switch assembly. This is going to be a really cool accessory to have on my truck, and I'm looking forward to connecting a bunch of different things and using it.